Hey, peace and blessings, everybody. I got something I want to talk with my youth about today. And it's one of those conversations that I hope that every parent has had or is having or is going to have with their sons and daughters, nieces and nephews. You know, we're looking at this Ja Morant situation unfold right before our eyes, and it's easy to criticize him and easy to really say negative things about him. But I think the greater focus is for us to look at his life right now and extrapolate whatever lessons we can and use them as teaching mechanisms for today's youth, because today's youth are very impressionable. They mimic and copy so much of what the culture presents before them. And I think sometimes they do it not even realizing that's what they're doing. You know, the Ja Morant situation is tragic at best. And it's really sad when you look at the full scope of what we're watching in real time. You know, he's drawing a lot of attention for the wrong reasons. And it's things that are happening off the court. On the court, he is a phenomenal talent. Off the court, though, things are not going as well as you would hope they would for somebody so gifted and talented. You know, he plays for the Memphis Grizzlies, and I don't know if you know anything about Memphis, man, but basketball is everything in Memphis. And in the eyes of, you know, that particular city, he is king, you know, as a player, as a leader, as the future of a franchise. A lot of people look to him. A lot of people have high hopes for him. His endorsements prove that. The fans prove that. The sales of his jerseys proves that. You know, Memphis is also, though, unfortunately, a city where juvenile crime is going through the roof. And when you mix those two together, the fact that juvenile crime in Memphis is going through the roof, not to mention juvenile crime all across the world, but juvenile crime in Memphis is insane right now. And then you have this celebrity basketball icon who continues to get in trouble being on the wrong side of the law, making choices and decisions that don't represent his brand to the best of his ability. And at the end of the day, can really put him in danger and maybe those around him in danger just by the image and the perception that he's projecting carelessly. I want to say this to young people, and here's where I think we can draw a few lessons that I hope Ja Morant will draw. And by no means am I at the place where I'm throwing him away or giving up on him. I'm praying for him. I believe he can turn it around. I believe he needs the right people in his life. But in the meantime, I want to talk to the young people who are following in his footsteps. Now, you may not be in the NBA, but many of you may be making some of the same horrible choices. And here's what I need you to understand. Life equals choices and consequences. If I had to summarize life in a nutshell, I put everything I know on this, that life equals what? Choices and consequences. In other words, when you make bad choices, you get bad consequences. And listen, I need y'all to understand this. This is a law that is not flexible. It's a law that is not changeable. It is a law that is applicable to every single one of us. When you make bad choices, it's only a matter of time before you get bad consequences. Now, here's the flip side of this. Here's the good news. When you make better choices, you get better consequences. Now, here's the problem with the first statement I made. When you make bad choices, you get bad consequences. Here's the problem with that. Oftentimes, you don't get bad consequences immediately when you make bad choices, which only encourages people to continue to make bad choices because, listen, I did it before. I got away with it. I did it before. I didn't get in trouble. I did it before. Nobody saw me. I did it before. I didn't get caught. I did it before, and I didn't suffer any bad consequences. Well, see, that's the allurement of bad choices. Bad choices really entice you to continue to make bad choices. And unfortunately, when we make bad choices over and over again, those bad choices become bigger bad choices. They become worse bad choices. They become horrible bad choices. And we might have started off with a small bad choice, But the longer you get away with something, the more courageous you become, the more bold you become with it. And oftentimes, the more careless you become. So remember that I told you this. Bad choices. Do what? They're going to get you some bad consequences. But here's the good news. Better choices will get you better consequences. You know, we have to look at Ja Morant and learn from his life and ask the question, you know, who do you blame when you're guilty of self-destruction and self-sabotage? Who do you blame? Can't blame the white man, can't blame the black man, can't blame the media, can't blame the government, can't blame society. When you yourself are making bad choices and then experiencing bad consequences, you really can't blame anybody. And this is bigger than the gun incidents that we are watching in real time. This being the second gun incident that he's dealing with now. But this goes beyond that because you have to go back and look at patterns. I am huge when it comes to patterns. I am big on studying our own patterns. If you'll study the patterns of your life, your patterns are predictors. Whew, this is rich teaching. Can I say that again? If you will study the patterns of your own life, here's what I know. Your patterns are predictors. Your patterns will tell you where you're going, where you're not going, what you'll be able to do, what you won't be able to do. Your patterns really will paint your future for you. And we look at certain patterns as it relates to Ja Morant off the basketball court. We notice some patterns that are extremely alarming. Being in the prestigious position and having the privilege of being in the NBA, making millions of dollars with the potential of making millions upon millions of dollars. We have patterns that we must pay attention to, and patterns that if he does not correct, they are going to destroy his destiny. Patterns like being accused of punching a 17-year-old during a basketball game at his house a couple of summers ago. Patterns like being accused of threatening a security guard at the Wolf Chase Galleria. And then patterns like flashing guns on separate incidents that end up on Instagram. These patterns are predictors. And the patterns that I'm seeing in Ja Morant's life are the same patterns I see in our youth. And I'm going to say this, and please don't get offended. I say this in love. I also see these same patterns in many of the lives of adults, grown men and grown women. And the pattern, I can label it as patterns of immaturity. And I know sometimes we don't like to hear that, especially once we reach a certain age. We don't like to hear that we may still be walking in patterns of immaturity. But when you are making poor choices, and you're making poor choices in spite of having the ability to make better choices, and you're making poor choices over and over again in spite of the poor consequences and the penalties and the repercussions, there is no other way to analyze this than to really just step to the plate and say, you know what? We're looking at immaturity. We're looking at patterns of immaturity. And here's what I want to tell you about patterns of immaturity. And I tell you this as a man approaching 55 years of age who has lived, who has made his fair share, more than his fair share of mistakes, bad choices, and bad decisions. Let me tell you this. And this is wisdom that I hope you will appreciate. Immaturity will destroy your destiny. Don't let anybody fool you. You know, we love to say what God has for me is for me. And that is true to an extent. Because even though God has something for you, if you don't grow up, if you don't mature before you destroy what God has for you, the opportunity, the possibility, the chance, and yes, you can destroy your destiny. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. You can destroy your destiny. Why? Because your decisions design your destiny. Come on, Pastor Troy. Can I say that again? Your decisions design your destiny. And I like to say your choices chart your courses in life. So here's what we have to do. And these are the lessons that we want to learn from Ja Morant's life because it's applicable in so many of our lives. The first thing you have to do is you have to grow up. And I know you say, well, he's young. And some of you young folks might say, well, Pastor Troy, I'm young. And listen, I'm not going to take that from you. Congratulations on being young. But just because you're young doesn't mean you get to be dumb. Let me say that again. Just because you're young doesn't mean you get to be dumb. And here's what I want you to know. Just because you're young doesn't mean you have to be dumb. And it certainly doesn't mean you have to stay dumb. You have the ability to learn and to grow up. Here's the second thing you got to do. You have to release the friends in your life that don't love you enough to challenge you when you're acting immature. And this is one of the patterns that I'm seeing in Ja Morant's life. Again, from the outside looking in, from what I'm seeing people in his life that, in my opinion, number one, don't deserve to be in his life. Number two, should not be in his life. Number three, are not mature enough to challenge him when he's making immature decisions. They're just along for the ride. From what I see, celebrating, and oftentimes they're the ones videotaping and going live, not recognizing this is my friend. If I post this, it could cost him millions of dollars. This is my friend. This is my homeboy. This is my buddy. If I put this on live, if I put this on social media, then I can ruin his career. That's what a real friend would be thinking. But when you've got immature people around you, and you call those immature people your ride or dies, your friends, your homeboys, your homegirls, then what you have are people who are only going to contribute to your patterns of immaturity and, unfortunately, your patterns of self-destruction. And I'll say this and I'll close. Everybody makes mistakes. Okay? So we're not stomping Ja Morant. We're not crucifying him. Everybody makes mistakes. I've made my fair share. I told you that in this video. You're going to make your fair share. That is not the point. We can agree everybody makes mistakes. Here's where we also must push the envelope. Everybody must learn from their mistakes. Can't just go through life saying, well, hey, everybody makes mistakes. Okay. No, everybody's got to learn from their mistakes. And then we have to push the envelope just a little bit further, because every one of us has to really pay attention to where we are in life, what level we're on, what blessings we've been afforded, what positions we have that maybe rare positions, maybe rare opportunities that we have been afforded. And if we are one of those individuals, then we've got to push it even further, because the more you have to lose, listen to me, young people, the more you have to lose and the more you have at stake, the quicker you have to learn and turn from your mistakes. Ja Morant happens to also be a father of a 4-year-old daughter who, now more than ever at the age of 4, she needs her father to think about the future more than anything else right now. Again, though, when you have patterns of immaturity, you're not thinking like a father, you're not acting like a father, you're not even thinking like a millionaire, you're not thinking like somebody who's on the road to wealth and success beyond your wildest imaginations. You're thinking like your favorite rapper. You're thinking like the underbelly of our culture. You're thinking, like someone who is really not thinking clearly and thoroughly about who they are, where they're going, and the possibilities that are at your fingertips. So I hope that every young person that'll get a chance to watch this will really think about what I'm sharing, because it's easy to look at Ja Morant and criticize Ja Morant, but how many of you young folks out there have patterns of immaturity? How many of my youth right now are making poor choices? And maybe you haven't run up on those poor consequences yet, but I will promise you this: continue to make poor choices. And I guarantee you, it is only a matter of time before the poor consequences find their way to you. I love you so much that I don't want that to happen to you. So learn and turn quickly, because the quicker you do, the further you'll go in life. Hey, this is Pastor Troy Wynn, Sr., the senior pastor of the Freedom Church in Warner Robins, Georgia, coach and mentor to so many youth, K through 12. And I just wanted to share this message, what we can learn from Ja Morant in this season, so that we can benefit. And as well, we keep him in prayer and keep them lifted up and pray that he will have that moment of growth, that moment of maturity where he recognizes that if he continues along this path, that he will just be another statistic and it won't be a good one. Have a blessed day, everybody. Hey, do me a quick favor. Please share this if it blesses you. If I'm speaking truth to power, if you think what I'm saying has merit and has value, do me a favor, young and old alike, please share this, and we may be able to save a few lives in the process. Have a blessed day. Have a good day. But more importantly, have a God day.